So as we kind of move into our message time this morning, we have something a little bit different this morning. We want to wish a happy Father's Day to all of you men out there. I think we would all agree that being a parent is one of the most intimidating endeavors that any of us could ever take on. We're often overwhelmed by all the stuff that we think we should be doing to be a good dad or a good mom. However, what we do is we get bogged down by seeing all the things that we've dropped the ball on, things that didn't quite go the way we wanted, the areas that we've not done well in as being a father. But I think if we look into Scripture, of all the things that we might not do well, the one thing that's absolutely critical for us to get right as dads is love. How are we loving our kids? Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13:11, when I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child, and I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. And so what's interesting in this is we all want growth in our kids, and we all want this growth that God has in mind, that they seek Him. But this chapter of 1 Corinthians, this love chapter, is sandwiched between these two other ones. 1 Corinthians 12 is about spiritual gifts that Paul talks about, and 1 Corinthians 14 is all about spiritual power in the church. And so Paul's pointing out you can have talent, you can have spiritual influence, but if you do not do it with love, it's meaningless. And so all that comes in when it comes into parenting. So in our prayers, our aim is to be the best possible parent that we can be in the midst of our daily failures, that we pray that God would help us to love well. And so today we've got a little different format for our sermon time this morning. We're going to take three dads in three different stages of parenting, and we're going to hear from them on video during this time. So watch it the first hour. It was great just hearing their insights from ones with little kids all the way up to ones that are grown and have grandkids as well. So let's watch this and just ask God, what do you want to take from this to be able to encourage yourself or encourage other guys in your life? Let's watch this now.
Hey, First Church. Gary Clark, Union Campus pastor. I've been married to Amy for this summer is 21 years. So July 12th is 21 years. With her, we've been together for 25 years. 25 years. We have two children. Madison is 14 and Brady is 12. So I tell people often, I've said this recently, that I'm pretty confident I was put here on this earth to be a dad and to be a spouse.
I'm Gary Greiser. I've been working at Trio now for 14, almost 15 years. I've been married to Marie Greiser for 59 years, and we have two sons, Keith and Kevin, and we have 7 grandchildren. Glad to have some of those family members here today.
My name is Eric. I've been married to my wife Jess for 10 years now, and we have 2 kiddos, Nellie, who's 4, and Luke, who's 1.5. And man, I love being a dad. One of my favorite things about it is the kind of joy that they bring to our home. We love to have dance parties, so any kind of music that's playing, hitting on drums, playing the piano, singing at the top of our lungs. But I also think it's pretty special when I hear my kids laugh and see them smile. It really brings a joy that I can't really experience anywhere else. Now, to the dads with little kids, it's not always joyful. Parenting takes a lot of grace and patience and really working together with your spouse in the challenging times. But God has really helped reshape my life because of it.
What I love most about being a dad is when my kids get home from school, when I get home from work, and spending that precious time with them, just listening to stories and them talking about their friends, talking about their grades, and a variety of different things. And I try really, really, really hard to remember all their names, the friends' faces, the classes, the teachers, all of these different things. What I love most about being a dad is just spending time with them, quality time with them.
I noticed that the second word in the question is do. What do you enjoy most about being a dad, not did? So I would say I enjoy watching them teach and influence their own children, our grandchildren. I enjoy seeing what they considered important in their own upbringing that was worthy of passing on to their children. And I take great delight in seeing how they parent their own kids. Bill Gaither wrote a song called Passing the Faith Along. And I was drawn to those words this week in trying to think through what I might say here today. And I was thinking that in my own upbringing, I remember my grandfather, Cason, was very active in the Bellevue Baptist Church. His family went to that church faithfully every time the door was open. So my mother grew up in that environment. My dad grew up in a church environment, not quite as strict as my mother. But I grew up in a Christian home. My parents always saw to it that we always were in church, that we were always involved in church, learning scriptures, doing things, and just learning about Jesus. So prayer, Bible study, church attendance, and Jesus were ingrained at a very early age in my life, and I passed that along to my kids. My wife grew up in the Trinity Baptist Church in Lexington, Kentucky. She was a strong Christian, and so together we created a Christian home and continue that legacy from my grandfather to my parents to our home and now to our kids. And I'm happy to say that both of our kids are Christians. They have married Christian women. They have established a Christian home. All 7 grandchildren have been baptized, are Christians, are following God's will for their life, developing their talents to be useful in serving Him. So I'd say, what do I enjoy most about being a dad? That's it. Let's move on to question 2.
Here's what's most challenging about being a dad. To me specifically, after being a dad for 14 years, I'm reading a book and studying through it with some of my buddies. It's called The Intentional Father, and specifically for fathers and sons. But he says, one of these days, it's coming soon and it's inevitable, your kid is going to leave your house. What do they have in their suitcase for when they leave? And this is what I talk about, your influence is incredible. Your 2 greatest resources as a parent, as a dad, is your time and your influence. I've only been a dad for 14 years. That does not make me an expert. It just makes me a dad for 14 years. What I've learned is this, is dads out there, your greatest gift to your family, your greatest gift to your kids is not your ability to earn, but it's your time and your influence. You guys have heard the story or the sermon illustration of the kid coming in and asking his dad what he makes an hour, and then going and busting open his piggy bank and getting money out to pay his dad for an hour of his time. I think the most important thing is giving kids your time. Know their friends, know their friends' names, know who their parents are. When I spend quality time with my kids, I never get done with that. And I think, you know what? I wish I worked a little bit longer today, or I wish that I was actually playing Candy Crush on my phone or whatever. It's always, always, always a good thing. I grew up in a home where we talked often about what Larry Bird was doing and about what Randy Macho Man Savage was doing. And we talked often about what Bill Dance was doing, who is a professional fisherman, or was a professional fisherman. But we talked very little about what God was doing. And so dads, you are in it. You have a chance to influence your children. You have a power to influence their children. You see, I say this often, that my greatest gift that I'm giving to the world is not anything that I can do. but it's the people that I send out into the world. It's the kids that live in my house. I want to have influence with them.
Well, I had to think about that for a while, and I thought that in order to be a father, there needs to be, or should be, a wife. God led me to a good one. Marie Dash and I met at her church in Lexington and fell in love and have stayed in love and stayed together and for the most part in love, I think, for 59 years. We had several miscarriages before our first child was born. And when Keith was born, it was a very joyous occasion. And then we had another miscarriage before Kevin was born. And Kevin was another joyous occasion. So our children were precious to us before they were born. Just having the privilege of being a parent was a tough go for us. And I can remember Marie wanted more than anything else to be a mother. So we committed our children to God before they were born, and we prayed earnestly to God that He would let us have children. And our prayers were answered in a great big way, and we're grateful to have Keith and Kevin in our lives now. I considered my main role as a father was to provide. And so I worked hard. I had multiple tasks and multiple incomes, and I'll have to say that Marie did most of the raising of the children. I should have done more, but it seemed to have worked out pretty well.
Couple things I've learned in the past few years is how to teach and raise my kids on what's right and what's wrong. One of the most challenging things I think I had to understand is that they aren't 35 years old. They don't have the same kind of awareness or logic or mental capacity that I may have. So how can I get on their level? One of the things we teach a lot in our home is our choices produce consequences. So objectively speaking, you make a bad choice, there's a consequence. It's not because I said so or because I'm in charge, but in our life, our actions and our decisions reflect what happens to us. So, for example, you don't want to wear a coat in the winter, you're going to be cold. You don't want to eat breakfast, you're going to be hungry later. Sorry, there's no snacks. You can't be gentle with that toy, it's going to break and we can't play with it anymore. If you want to wrestle me, you're going to lose. So our choices produce consequences. But another thing that we say a lot is, let's try that again. I want my kids to experience grace and forgiveness along with their discipline. I want to be able to reflect the way that God views me. I mean, I love my kids so much. And I know what's best for them, especially at this stage. And sometimes they can't see that or understand, and they want to defy the rules. But if I think about it, we do the same thing. We want our own autonomy. And God is saying, trust me, I know what's good for you, even if you can't see it. And I didn't fully understand that until I became a dad. No matter how many bad choices my kids make, I will still love them the same. And to the other side of that, I never want my kids to think that they only earn my love by their good choices or my pride by the things that they accomplish. I simply love them for who they are. They're mine. And we have a God that despite our bad choices, He still loves us for who we are. He gave up His Son for us so that we could be forgiven. If I had someone tell me, you know, you could help a bunch of people if you just gave up your son, I'd be like, heck no, I'm not giving up my kid.
Well, the scriptures give us a lot of direction about parenting. And I would encourage everyone to do your own study about what does the Bible tell you about raising children, parenting, being a husband, being a wife, being responsible, working. There's a lot of good stuff in the scriptures to give us help. And so I would encourage that, and I have used the scriptures a lot for my direction in this part of my life. I see how God loved his son Jesus, and I see how God loved his adopted children, us, and has set a wonderful example of parenting through that. I would say, live the life you want your kids to emulate. More than even what you say, probably what they see will have more impact on them than anything else. They are watching, and so I encourage you to live your life as a father that you would want your kids to emulate. I've been taught that most of us have a desire to leave a legacy, and I think leaving a legacy starts at home. I think that we should introduce our kids to Jesus. That's, I think, one of the most paramount necessities of a Christian parent, to introduce your kids, to Jesus. Because he will always be there for them, even if you're not. We don't know what life holds for us. You may not be there for your child because death could take you early. You may not be there for your child because you could become impaired. So it's important, I think, introduce your kids to Jesus. He will always be there for them, whether we are there or not. When I was traveling around doing a lot of public speaking, I used to use this line: the best thing a man can do for his children is love their mother. I believe that. I believe the best thing a man can do for his children is love their mother. But I would hasten to still add, introduce your children to Jesus.
And so how do I relate all of this, my relationship with my kids, to my relationship with God? Is the number one thing when I'm asked this question, is the number one thing is I cannot believe how unbelievably kind the Lord is. To see a person like me and to send his son to die for me. I cannot believe how unbelievably kind he is, that in spite of all of my sin and all my times I've turned my back on him, that he is still kind and he is still patient. I just want to be kind. I want my kids, when they reflect on my life, when I'm gone one of these days, I want them to say, man, my dad was kind and he was patient with me.
I think the last thing I've learned recently is how much my kids truly depend on me. They depend on me for love and for safety and comfort, and that I will take care of them. And they do that with this unwavering trust that I'll provide it. And I know that I don't approach God the same way, and I should. I need to. It's truly amazing how certain things in life are a direct reflection of our relationship with God. I think there's a reason why we're given this opportunity, and it's to help us grow closer to Him.
Today, we give thanks for all the fathers, the grandfathers, and the father figures who helped shape us. The men whose strength and courage have been pillars for us to lean on. The men whose faithfulness has laid down an example for us to live by. The men who showed us how to love Jesus with an unquenchable passion. The men who gave of themselves time and time again. For all the times you were patient, even though we didn't deserve it. For the grace you've shown in moments of struggle. For the days you gave of your time when there wasn't much left to give. For loving us, guiding us, leading us, and showing us Jesus. For all these things, we say thank you. We love you, Dad.